I'm gonna eat you alive. Welcome back to the Punksacola Audiozine. This is our 10th episode, and we took a bit of an unexpected break in December. Truth be told, we were plenty busy, but just didn't get an episode out. 309 Punk Project received an award in December, the Placemaking Award, which recognizes that 309 Punk Project has created a significant place in our community. We were really touched by this recognition from Pensacola CivicCon. This pushed us to reflect a bit on some of the events and shows we've been working on over the last few years. This podcast is a helpful container for gathering together some of that work. Having spaces, safe spaces, and non-commodified spaces where different types of people can come together is really important right now. It seems like a small thing, but it isn't. This episode is all about radical friendship. Friendship that arises out of unexpected places, and friendship that accepts us as we are. Friendship that pushes us to be our best, most creative selves. And this episode is also about the spaces where we find such friendships. Our first piece is from an interview that Scott did a little while ago with Grover Ballard, a musician and show organizer here in Punksacola.
Hey everybody, I'm Grover. I'm a 24-year-old male. I live here in Pensacola and have since I was in the middle school era. I've been in a few bands in the scene. I was in Dicks from Mars, I was in Dead Bugs, I'm in Sour, and I'm in a few other projects that are still taking off the ground. And I've been booking shows here for maybe 6 years, and I've been part of 309 Punk Project for about a year and some change.
All right, cool. Well, tell me how you got involved in punk.
Oh gosh, well, I think one of the reasons I like being on the 309 board and support 309 is because I was really young whenever I got into the punk scene. I first met some of the OG punks when I was only 15 years old or so. I started playing when I was 14 and started playing shows when I was 15. And I remember our first show was at the Handlebar, and good family friend of ours, Jimmy Lamar, was there supporting us. He was so excited. And in the middle of our set, he took 2 PBRs and rolled them on stage. And our moms went, "Jimmy, you can't feed them PBR. They're only 15. But since then, Jimmy helped get me into it at a young age. Terry, of course, from Sluggos, and then people like Eliza and Famous Gabe, people I met when I was really young, just trying to play as many shows as I could. I was in that band Dicks from Mars, and we would play maybe 3 shows a week during a certain summer. So we were trying to get as many friends as possible, and it worked.
So what about 309? So when was the first time you went to 309?
Well, I had a friend who lived at 309. His name was Spolker, Zach Spolker. And he lived there, and he came to a few house shows that we had played. And one night he was a little drunk, and we were hanging out after the house show. And he said, "Grover, I love you, man. You got to come to 309 Punkhouse." And I said, what is a punk house? And he's like, "It's a house where all people care about is punk." And I looked at my friend Drew, who's in Dicks from Mars with me back then, and I said, "That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a house that's only punk." I said, "This is a little too fantastical for me." But then a little while later, which I have the flyer somewhere back here on my wall, we got invited to play a show at 309. It was one of the last shows before the 309 Punk Project kind of saved the building from collapsing in on itself. It was a fundraiser show. It was Dicks from Mars, Little Wimp, and Resolve, and maybe one other band as well. And it was really great. I think the other band was Crotch Rot with 2 T's. I remember them. They were the stinkiest band in town, really smelly.
So it's not just a name.
Not just a name.
Grover, so tell me, why is the 309 Punk Project important to you?
I think the 309 project's important to me, first of all, because I'm into the history of Pensacola punk. I love learning about all the old bands and trying to take inspiration. Of course, This Bike is a Pipe Bomb is one of my all-time favorite bands.
Find that record. What you'll notice on the backside of it are all of these This Bike is a Pipe Bomb references, backside, front side, and even the record itself is not only listed in Pensacola, but Punksacola instead.
I think it's down here, Punksacola, Florida. That's the best, right?
I know that was the first time where that name really stuck on anything in an official capacity.
Besides the historical aspect of 309, I also like that there's an effort to bring in young people. I think that a lot of people start booking shows or doing stuff just assuming that young people will come or that they'll trickle in or things like that, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you have to actually have an initiative to try to get people to say, hey, this isn't a fantastical land we're living in the way I thought it was. It is a real thing, and there's structures and frameworks for you to come in and express yourself and do the things that you want to do that you might not know you could have done here in Pensacola.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool too, because one of the things with 309 in particular, probably like a lot of other punk houses, but definitely 309, is that it's pretty much always been multi-generational, just people from different age groups and all that stuff there, because, let's face it, I mean, there's only so many punks in Pensacola, so you find your people.
I think my idea with the 309 Punk Project, and it's kind of part of our mission statement, is to kind of inculcate a new era of punk that is radically diverse and radically accepting. When I was young, of course, the scene was a little different. And even before that, the old days of Black Flag or the Descendants, it wasn't the most accepting scene. But luckily, whenever I came into it, I realized I had a bunch of people saying it's more radical to be overly accepting, than it is to be kind of shutting others out. And we have a sign in our house that says radical friendship is the only way we'll make it out, and so I kind of think it's the same with 309. If we can set up the ability to kind of radically accept people into the punk scene, it'll grow. People understand that punk isn't just looking a certain way, but feeling or acting a certain way. People would say, ask me, why did you want to create the Bug House, which is a punk house I live in? And I would say that it's because of 309. I remember I reached out to yours truly and said, how did you do that? How did you get a really crappy house and make it nice and cheap for a bunch of people to live in? And then you gave me the keys to success, right? And then as a little kid, as just a 20-year-old, before the housing market went crazy, I was able to buy a big old punk house. And at one point we were doing 2 shows a month here, and it was really nice. But then the plague hits, of course, so you can't. But a lot of people don't know that if it weren't for 309, I would have never fallen in love with this collective living situation. Especially, I've never lived in not a punk house. So when I moved out at 17, I was in a Dix Ramar's house, a Romana Street house, this house, that house. Now here I am.
It's funny too, because a lot of times people will think about the punk house and think not just ours and yours, but just punk house in general, and think I couldn't live with that many people. But it's like at its best is having an ideal family. These people that you've chosen, our chosen family. And just like any other family, some days are better than others, and sometimes it works better than other days. But still, it's beautiful in all of its different ways.
This year, 309 Punk Project received our first grant from the organization Florida Humanities, which connects Floridians to our history, cultures, and the stories that shape our communities and enrich our lives. We used the funds to present the first of what we hope will be an ongoing Encountering Humanities series, exploring punk and the human experience, and more. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program do not necessarily represent those of Florida Humanities or the National Endowment for the Humanities. One of the events we presented was a talk and reading by Erica Dawn Lyle. Here's Erica reading a piece at the event.
Dear Hannah, when performance of a stable self becomes impossible, one self could always go on strike. As I move today, I begin to locate my body within these 4 walls, and myself where? I'm somewhere else. Information. Walking along the shifting line where the sea becomes shore, all the charged negative particles there seeking to connect. So, are you like Shadow Band 2, dancing along the shore at twilight?
The second event that we presented in the Encountering Humanities series was a film screening and discussion with Ivette Spradlin. Spradlin is a curator of the online community Punkhouse Atlanta and is currently producing the film The Wild Wild West End, 3 separate parts about the Atlanta warehouse compound that was home to dozens of people, including many punks, artists, skateboarders, and musicians in the late 1990s and early 2000s, before everyone was evicted. Some of our Pensacola community members even lived in the Atlanta warehouses during that time. Here, Ivette talks with historian James Wells, who organized the oral history of 309 that led to the publication of the book Punkhouse in the Deep South.
I was always interested in these kinds of ways of we process the world and look at the world, and these kind of community in terms of what is the difference between me doing this as an artist and me, or if people who are historians. And I think one of maybe the benefits or the freedom, at least I can feel, is that I don't feel as attached to the facts of everything that happened. Everybody's memory is a little bit fuzzy, some better than others, and I think I'm not as concerned about what if they're remembering is correct as much as I am as how them remembering that makes them feel and makes them connect, and how they think back on that space, and how what happens to them emotionally when they think about that space and when they think about how it's affected their life. That to me is far more powerful and important than necessarily the history of it. I mean, I think to me, obviously what's so unique about the warehouse is that it's a warehouse. And so it's gigantic, and then of course that they come in and they build their own rooms and they do all of this themselves, and it's so amazing and impressive, and it can hold so many people, and it can allow for so many different things to happen, and how important that to just have that container for an event or for a community is. And when you don't have a place like that to go and kind of be inside of that, you don't have community really without that. So I think that is really important. I also think a lot of cities had a warehouse where punks lived in. I think what was so unique to Atlanta was that I have yet to know of another city that had a whole complex of warehouses filled with punks. Just like one person said, an endless sea of punks. It was just one warehouse. There, I don't really know exactly how many warehouses at the peak of it had punks in it, but I would guess around at least 10, maybe 20. But there was, and they all kind of represented these different facets of DIY culture. And so I thought that was always really fascinating about it. You had the straight edge warehouse, and then you had, these whatever, more partying kind of punks, and then you had these college students, and then you had, these, experimental jazz kind of people. And so, but they all were there together, and they're all sharing ideas. And I do think what Chuck says about all these different personas coming together and being in the same space together, these kinds of spaces that allow for that just kind of casual interaction, and really create bonds that can't be replaced can't be mimicked in other ways and in other places.
I think one of the folks being interviewed called it a punk utopia at one point, but there's a darkness that is underneath that kind of peeks through. Can you speak to that at moments where this utopia becomes a little dystopia almost?
Yeah, I think that, I feel like even back then for me, going there, I remember thinking, and I don't know if it's because I'm more anxious or something, but I would feel the energy building up so much in these spaces, and it just felt like at a certain point that energy could not, not even this giant space can contain it, and that something, something's gonna happen, whether it's the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. And it just always had that edge to it, which made it incredibly fun and made it incredibly, intoxicating. It made it memorable. It made it all these things, but you just knew that there had to be that other side lurking around the corner. When thinking about doing this too, knowing some of the bad things that had happened there, some of the tragic things that had happened there, like really wanting to pay, to be mindful of that and to recognize those things as well, that all of these things can exist and together, just like we can care for people, we can hate people with the same person, we can do all of these things together. We can have all these conflicting feelings and experiences, and we can still look back with fondness, but also know some real fucked up shit happened, because there were so many people there, because there were so many different kinds of events. It just became this microcosm of how this life is.
Interviewing these folks 15, 20, 25 years after the fact, and we did an oral history project with 309, and this came up, I think, some of it, but this tension between, this issue of nostalgia, this issue of myth-making.
There's definitely one person in particular that refuses to be interviewed, and it's somebody that most everybody has stories about. And part of his reasoning is that he feels like it's like glory days kind of thing, like you're just romanticizing this past, and he doesn't want to live in the past and whatever. So that's generally what I've heard. So I thought a lot about that, and I remember reading that in the 309 oral history that where they one of the people mentioned about romanticizing the past and having this real problem with that. And I think that's very true within this subculture of people wanting to be very real about things and really recognize that the issues and the problems and not sugarcoat things, and because I think there is a feeling like this is how we evolve and this is how we grow, is we see problematic situations and then we talk about them, or we sing about them, or we make art about them, and hopefully we grow. So, but at the same time, now that we are not 22 anymore, or whatever we were back then, and we're older, and most people, get to a point where they look back either fondly or negatively on their past, and you may, you find yourself indulging in kind of nostalgia, and I don't think that is such a bad thing. I think it's actually can be really helpful in life and can create a lot of self-love and things that you've done and things that you've become and the reasons why you've become them, and also have fondness for the people that came into your life and helped shape you and help guide you. And so I think I like to indulge in that, and I don't think it's such a negative thing if you're really still paying attention to the fact that some things were really horrible. I don't think it's bad to look back and think things were great, and then some bad things happened also.
We're in this renaissance of punk history, of histories being written. Oral history seems to be really central to that. I am aware that some think the preservation of this history feels antithetical to the idea of punk or punk ethics. I wonder what your take on this challenge. Should there be punk history, and what are the ethics of that history, of that methodology? What makes is there something special about doing the history of this subculture?
This idea was that things were always gonna die off. They're always gonna change. They're always gonna they're eventually gonna not exist. So to me, there was something very punk with that. Where there was this feeling of immediacy in punk, and then an acknowledgement of this isn't gonna last and we don't need it to last. I think what is hard is because we saw these institutions that were big that didn't include these kinds of histories or films that didn't include these kind of histories, and we didn't necessarily want to be like them, or or that seemed like the status quo or whatever. So then how do you kind of create or do things that are status quo within, but still kind of like, honoring this counterculture. I want this stuff to remember as long as, it can be remembered. I do think what was created was special. I think it was a unique way of looking at the world. I think it changed things, and I think that all of that should be contained and preserved. And I think a lot of punks actually knew that because they were collecting shit forever. Like, they were getting all the set lists. They were saving their flyers. There was always somebody doing that, getting the records, and because you knew that there was something, that those were like your cultural artifacts. But I think what's unique in like places, especially like here, is that it is still maintaining some of that DIY, and that like these are the people who are part of it. These are the people who and then are now figuring out new ways to preserve it and show it. It still feels very DIY in that regard. It's just, I think, DIY things that we never thought we would be doing.
In an homage to ink and paper punk scenes of yesteryear and in support of our vibrant and thriving DIY music scenes, Punksacola Audiozine features a scene report. We want to hear from you. We want to know what's going on in your local live music scene. Get in touch if you want to submit a piece. Here is the Punksacola Audiozine scene report.
Hey everybody, this is Grover Ballard back again. Grover from 309 Bughouse and DIY Pensacola. I had the privilege of working an event this weekend. It was 1029, a fantastic show with Pigeon Pit, the Taints, Cookies and Cake, and Sunflower Cigarettes. And I'm here to give you a scene report on that very show. Doors opened at 6:30. The show started at 7 with Newt/Adrian/Sunflower Cigarettes played an amazing set. Unfortunately, I didn't get a recording of that set, but there was an amazing murder ballad in that acoustic set that moved Ashley Faulkner to tears. Before Cookies and Cake started, I was able to get a interview with Cody of the Taints. The Taints just returning from a tour, 5-day tour, and here I am asking Cody about that tour.
How was tour?
It was alright. It was fun.
Yeah.
Had a great time.
What was the best part?
Playing New Orleans and hanging out with all the New Orleans homies was pretty cool. Then just like, I think the best part is when me and Ethan, after David and Zach left to go like buy beer, we realized that we wanted beer. And there was this train going by the skate park, and we hopped on it, and then just like took it all the way down to a gas station, like jumped off right before the gas station.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. Very cool.
And in that, you can tell the Taints had quite the tour. I believe they stayed in the South and made their final stop at 309 for this show. You could hear a little bit of Sunflower Cigarettes in the background there. And then right after that, we had a performance by the one, the only, my all-time favorite rap group of Pensacola, the Cookies and the Cake.
You are not gonna fucking shake me! Listen, baby, you cannot escape me! You always think my baby. Shoo-doo-doo, nah. Shoo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Shoo-doo-doo, nah. Shoo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Thank you very much.
They played a killer set. And if you want to support Cookies and Cake, go out to their shows, follow them on the Instagram, but also support Melody with her new food truck, Pretty Baked. After them were the Taints. Again, unfortunately, I did not get a recording of the Taints, but I did have that nice interview with Cody. They played a fantastic set. And then not much longer after that, we had our touring band all the way from Olympia, Washington, Pigeon Pit set up. I have two beautiful clips. They played a beautiful, almost like a Western sounding set. A lot of them were non-binary, and actually the The lead singer had, I think I counted 15 people went up to the lead singer and asked to take photos with them. And I said, wow, you are quite the stud, right? Out here making friends wherever you go. So here we have a little bit of Pigeon Pit. As I was setting up sound for this band, I was so excited to see a slide guitar, which you can hear a little bit in there. I've never ran sound for a slide guitar, and boy, was I excited. Reminds me of a New Orleans band I used to listen to, Slow Motion Cowboys. Here's another set from Pigeon Pit. Pigeon Pit played about a 40-minute set. In the middle of the set, the singer just became a solo act as the drummer, the guitarist, the bassist, and the slide guitarist all left the stage, went out to the front of 309 and smoked a cigarette as they listened to the lead singer play their songs. It was a really cool time. After their set, again, I saw tons of people go up and talk about how much their music meant to them. I asked them a few questions, one of which, have you ever heard of This Bike is a Pipe Bomb? And they all, of course, said yes, and they understood the history between that band and 309. And I also asked them a little more general question.
How was it playing in Pensacola?
It was fun as hell.
What'd you guys do today before this?
We went to the beach. We swam in the Gulf. We body surfed. We took our dog to the beach and body surfed, and it was really fun. And then we got burritos.
Oh,
we
hell
got El Pastor. Yeah. So it was a fucking great day, actually. Yeah, and then just came here.
Awesome.
So
We've only had good times in Pensacola.
Yes,
So
let's
this
keep
is our
that up.
first time playing.
Fuck yeah. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
It was a great show all around. I was really happy I was able to be there and help. We have more shows coming up. Don't forget, we have Night on the Tracks Foo Fest for 309, ending with the show at the Handlebar, Show Me the Body, MS Paint, and Medieval Times. It's going to be quite a fun night. We also have a show on Halloween, October 31st. I'm not sure if this is coming out after that, with a few different bands. One of my good friends, Goodwin Rayner, and Outlook Leaf. Until next time, guys, follow the bands, follow the venues, be on your best behavior. We love you so much, and we hope to never leave you. This has been a Scene Report.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Punksacola Audiozine. We are coming to you from Pensacola, Florida, in the southeastern U.S., the traditional homeland of the Creek, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Cherokee, and Seminole peoples. We at the 309 Punk Project truly appreciate your support and efforts with us to preserve and promote punk and DIY culture and arts that inspire and enrich all of our lives. Check out our news and events, donate, get in touch, or join our distro list, all at 309punkproject.org. Let's close out this episode with the song Fire Escape by Pigeon Pit, performed live at 309 Punk Project in October 2024.
Oh yeah, this is our first time ever playing in Pensacola. We're really hyped to be here. We're gonna play music for you now. Live music. Thank you so much.